Hey, Dr. Lisa here for another episode of Owning Her Health. And I think the simplest way to describe my public podcast, Owning Her Health podcast, is that most health conversations start with what's wrong with you. And this one starts someplace different. I used to be very much talking about the symptoms of women when I had my clinical hat on and looking at that in a very systemic way, a very empowering way, in that you are not defined by your physical circumstances, your mental circumstances, your emotional circumstances. And over time, that became apparent, very, very clear, very, very apparent to me that owning her health, meaning the human that houses this womb wisdom, that's who I'm referring to as her, needed to evolve from the very yogic, integrative women's health therapy, physical therapy, functional medicine, nutritional gut health, mind and body and gut and all that. It needed to really start to be more of an ecological conversation because environment matters, and women, that's how we are the barometers. We are the barometers. So if I had to describe owning her health now in this evolution of the podcast this season, it's really that, number one, and I am reading this from my notes, but it's built on the belief that you're not broken. I left that philosophy, even though I started in athletic training and sports medicine, and that was all performance. When I went into rehab medicine, when I went into the hospital systems, I was flabbergasted because I was the kooky one bringing an exercise ball in the 90s to a geriatric, a man that had had a stroke's room. And they were like, "What are you doing?" Because they just couldn't understand that, play could be incorporated even if you're in adult rehab and even if you're working with somebody who's had a stroke. It's the same idea. You still have a nervous system. You're still doing the same things you're doing for a little kid on the physio ball, as you could just like expand it. And now that's common. People understand now that, we've gone into this wellness model and this idea of mind, body, and holistic, and we understand epigenetics. But do we? Do we really understand, when the conversation of epigenetics came in, that that's a heart centered conversation. That's the heart brain. Have we taken it out of the head brain yet? I don't think so in medicine. And I don't think US medicine, allopathy, which is the US Western medicine that was colonized and brought into every other discipline medicine, Eastern medicines of Ayurveda and Hermetics and Chinese medicine systems and things like that. That's all that's all its own conversation. But the premise of allopathic is that it's fragmented. The scientific theory is reductionist, and therefore you can never truly understand the object of your study inside the systems it was created. And so owning her health, when honestly you knew that to the point you didn't even study women as their own entity until the 1990s, makes me extremely upset and concerned with this idea that AI in healthcare grabbing all the data that still has very little concentrated true wealth of wisdom where women are the subject matter. Because we literally, I graduated high school in 1990. We weren't even yet studying it. I'm not that old. So that's how little we have that wasn't just reductionist from assuming we'll operate like men. And we already know how limited we were in the fragmentation of men And let's not even get on the idea of children and human development, because if we understood any of that, pediatricians would have a nutritionist on board and would be working and meeting with women in their third trimester. If we were actually using the science of human development, we wouldn't have, here in the US, we would not be like, I think, 38th out of 39th in terms of like covering, um, being a wealthy enough country to cover all of our citizens' healthcare system, and our maternal health stats and morbidity and mortality rates wouldn't be in the crapper like they are now. So you can see, like, we have this, it's not just that healthcare is broken. Healthcare is actually not broken. It's just tremendously being pushed into the community framework from which it was extracted, because medicine, and industrialized medicine at that, the US medical model, the invention of allopathy to do this, who removed all of the things that we're saying are trends, and ooh, gut health, and ooh, our food is medicine. Like, none of that's new to the indigenous of this land and every other land on this planet. None of it is new to my Puerto Rican grandparents, rest in peace, and my parents, rest in peace. It's just it was not marketed and stolen from until now. So there's a difference between the information that we have and the data sets and the knowledge and the pattern recognition we create as knowledge in academia and wisdom, which in and of itself can't be truly quantified and definitely can be qualified as more indicative of truth than just information and data sets alone, which then finds us back into the AI conversation, right? How high in intelligence can artificial intelligence ever go? It's completely on a cognitive intelligence track. And we have seen the humans who are founders of this large language model. We're trying to give it for a language to communicate its computations back to us, and for us to communicate our language to be made into computations and then regenerated back to us. We've seen the limitation because they don't really have the people who are working on this, the scientific data analysts who haven't kind of woken up to the limitation yet. They only have cognitive intelligence. They're not really developing their intuitive intelligence, because intuitive intelligence is at the heart. And the same people who are saying empathy is weak and certain people are less human because of the presentation of how they worked their body to the ecology of where their native people lived and where they live now. I have a suntan right now because where I am, of Puerto Rican descent, and where I live, the sun is very strong and can give me a suntan. But it may not be that way on June, what is it, 7th, 8th, everywhere in the world. And those people may not be as tan as me right now, even if they have Puerto Rican descent. Like that, you understand? That's cognitive intelligence that should be happening. But when you don't have an intuitive intelligence developing parallel to that, when you don't have the heart brain working and nor do you believe in it, then you're going to be limited to the limitations of the humans who are limited in their cognitive relationality to the world around them because they've allowed themselves to be outside the ecology. They're not operating inside the idea that we're all one human race and we're all gonna die, and we don't have to if we can work together with the ecology of our environments. So, is medicine broken? Allopathic was always a business system. It was always bound to be broken because the business model required intervention, surgery, pharmaceuticals. It was built on the fact that you were sick and in emergent need of a medical diagnosis and handling of care. As soon as we crossed the Rubicon to actually wanting well-being back and focusing on wellness and functional medicine and the root of the problems, we started to realize, ooh, businesses are the root of the problem. Ooh, corporate control and insurance company incentives are the root of the problem. Ooh, we have diseases and cancer because we're causing the problem. You understand? Those two models will never coexist. So we're at the point where we need to decide which one we're going to follow. We can either be ecological or we can be capital based. That's where we're at. And so owning her health is built on that intuitive intelligence and cognitive intelligence, understanding that that only comes secondary to understanding pattern recognition on the information. And that comes from data and data creation and navigating it. But AI will consistently be limited and would actually be dangerous if you took out the heart-based intelligence in the operations of it, which is conversation in ethics and is a conversation in humanity, but it's really a conversation of humanity and arts. Heart intelligence is intuition. It's not a mind thing. It's not a head thing. Intuition's not a head thing just because the sixth chakra was put in the head. We've got to separate that. And so the difference between information that fills your head and the wisdom that changes how you live is part of the owning her health conversation. Because until we have systems that understand and qualify that womb holders, literally their body, our 28-day cycle is the trick for teaching non-womb holders how to get into their heart intelligence. It's the bridge between the gut, the belly, and the head intelligence. And we all know the second brain and the work of, what was it, Michael? I can't think of his name right now. I have his book over there. But right, the second brain and the gut intelligence, and we made a whole functional medicine thing out of that, right? You're still not owning her health just because now you realize that hormones and gut metabolism have a connection to, the logic and the brain physiology and all of that. Because that's still bypassing the intuitive wisdom, right? If women are still, if we're still cutting SNAP benefits in this country, particularly to women who are pregnant and their children, or to the elderly or the disabled who cannot work 80 hours a month or volunteer because of their situation, and the fact that they gave you and volunteered their legs and their arms in mortal combat that you sent them to in Vietnam and Korea and everywhere else. So I think what Owning Her Health, the podcast, the public podcast that you can find anywhere, this Substack has a private podcast, The Afterglow, for getting deeper into it. It's going to be the life school. It's the life school. It's like the place where womb holders can learn how to sort of work in a world where you're done accumulating and get the readiness to really integrate all the wisdom you already have. I'm assuming you have the wisdom. If you go from the Owning Her Health podcast and you come and you read my work here, I'm assuming you are already past the data consumption, constant consumption, and you have the pattern recognition to organize it into some sort of information system, and you, by golly, probably have navigated this system of whatever this is. You've probably left traditional healthcare, service-based businesses, maybe even corporate, either out of your own illness and thus getting the wisdom through that, because that's a main fast channel, that's an acceleration channel, or divorce, or some sort of infidelity of some sort, financial infidelity, betrayal from your company. Like, you're in that mess and you probably left it and were trying to do good, and then this 2025 came in. I'm assuming if you're listening to my private podcast, you are understanding that you need to understand how to integrate all the wisdom that you already hold. But for those of you who are listening to this and not quite there, and you're just sort of discovering this idea that there's different levels of, I don't know if we should call it consciousness. I guess so. But I've been finding it very, very hard to water things down to the comfort level that people want to consume wisdom in, because they don't cohabitate. Wisdom and watering down means, and I'm going to get into I'm going to finish this podcast by actually going through, I think Richard Rohr, R-O-H-R, he's a Franciscan father. You probably saw him through Oprah Winfrey. He's nearing the end of his life now. I think he's been dealing with some illnesses and things like that. But, go look at his stuff, because he has his Consciousness Institute, and his talk is probably really helpful for people who need to bridge the science and the spirituality outside of institutionalism. You know what I mean by that? Meaning, you're that person that's like, you've been on this journey. Like I said, you probably made some life choices already to try to get yourself out. And just when you were getting going and thinking things like could be better, in comes in this whole administration and shows you how too many people, too many adults, not only just here in America, but in this world, are still operating on the lowest consciousness levels. And you're disappointed. And yeah, you're probably part of that 92%, and you've gone through the retreat and the withdrawal, and you're watching and taking care of yourself, but you are very much a wise woman or man. I'm gonna say my conversation is mostly for her, and you will bring in the men in your life that are ready and have the capacity for it. But for the most part, I know you're wise enough to realize our time in watching is done. It's complete. And it's not that we need to be the activists. Our activism is different. It's morphed. And we need to be ready to integrate. We're going to be the integration people. For the revolutionists, for the activists who need to step up, our sisters need to step up. Our brothers in power and privilege and position, whether or not they admit they are compared to others, because they're still on their journeys, they need to step up, and they need to be the ones on the front lines in the pictures, because we understand what they're trying to do, right? We understand how they're trying to bait certain people, and we're not going to let that happen. So owning her health is that life school, and however you want to attend it, through the podcast, through just the opening of the conversation, through the very generic form of it, because I am no longer educating the people that just take it and use it in their position as weapons thrown back to the people who are kind of a little bit on the fence and ignorant and scared and fearful. And And that works against us. I'm no longer working against us by trying to have faith. I'm going to give those people to God. I'm just going to give those people to God. I'm not trying to educate anyone who is not at the capacity of receptivity to be educated. And I don't think really anyone in healthcare, in an educated healthcare, like leave that to the wellness influencers, leave that to the health of, like, don't worry about it. Okay, if they go down the wrong path and they drink the wrong thing and they kill themselves, we're at the point right now that we need to be working with the people who would know enough to research things and not drink that. Okay? Like we need to now work with the people who are not just consuming information each day. They have pattern recognition enough, and they are looking for conversations to kind of validate or invalidate some of the things they're genuinely coming up with through their window of intelligence. Like, they're not looking for a cult leader. They're not looking to be a follower. They're not necessarily looking to lead the revolution, but they have some self-worth and self-work done. Like, that's who Owning Her Health is for now. You're intelligent, you are accomplished, and you no longer can operate in that thing, either because you were finally pushed out and you didn't join me 10 years ago when I said, look, look at the horizon, look at the light, and move now into your own thing. Own your health, own your wealth, own your story, own your process, own your position now. However that's going to take you, and by golly, the last 10 years it's been scary for me, so I understand what you were trying to avoid. But I don't think that if you're on that sacred success path with me, that if you've jumped off the hero's journey, if you understand, look, I am not everybody's hero, nor do I want to be. Okay? I just know what I know, and I've opened up my heart enough, and I've healed. I am no longer speaking from wounds, and I do not want to do any wounding in the process. But I also know that this idea, Pollyanna, ahimsa idea where I'm going to do no harm to anyone in the process ain't going to work when there's people literally goading people to do harm to me. There is a time and a place, and sometimes ahimsa means that you're not going to let the big picture get destroyed through violence, trying to save one flower in the weeds, okay? We have to understand that. And so Owning Her Health is that life school for those women who are done accumulating, you are done consuming, you are done being the hungry, hungry caterpillar, and you've gone through your metamorphosis. This is very, very important. You've gone through your metamorphosis. And you may, if you're just, the podcast is for those who might be still sitting in that cocoon a little bit, or you broke out enough to realize you're different. You're a butterfly, but so what? What does this life as butterfly mean? What does being a butterfly mean? If you want those conversations of what it could possibly mean for you, a little bit more depth, go over to my Substack, the Owning Her Health publication, okay? And if you want to just tiptoe into that, become a free subscriber. But if you actually want to get into the conversations, such as, let's just say I'll deliver today on Richard Rohr's paradigm, but you want to actually apply it to your life, I ask you to support me and my media. I ask you to, because I'm deep in this. The more I try to run away from forming my ministry and having a conversation, a contemplative conversation, and letting my the mysticism of me come out in favor of trying to have conversations we need to have, such as AI and what that really means in the pro and the cons, and what it means for women, and what it means for marginalized communities all over the world. I can't have a health conversation. I can't. I'm past the easily consumed majority. It's not an elitism. It's not me specialness already. I'm just saying, like, everyone can get on this arc. I have offered you the arc for years. And now we're coming to this artificial intelligence conversation with absolutely no guardrails, and all of my health peers jumping on the bandwagon to use it, and probably doing nothing about the data centers and the conversations about that in their own towns. We're going backwards, guys. All these integrative people, I see you going backwards. And so we're going to create a space where you can live from all of yourself. You don't even have to be in healthcare. You just need to be someone who knows things and feels things right now that I can't necessarily give you the scientific method, reductionist reason why we should pursue that together. But I probably, and you probably, can bring into community in a roundtable discussion we might have privately in my Substack community, at an investiture, to say, what are you bringing to the table? Tell me your heart intelligence. Tell me your ancestral wisdom pertaining to this. And let me tell you mine. And let me tell you what the science says, and bring your research, and I'll bring my research and your work you've been working on. I'll bring my work I've been working on. And we're going to do something together at the community level. I don't care about industry right now. I don't fear them right now. But I need to be wise to the game and the playbook they play. And guess what? I believe you have that. I believe that there's women out there that have that already, because you've either tried to operate inside it too long, and now you can take the intelligence out and extract it for once instead of it extracting the hell out of you, and we'll use it, be a spy for us, or you're out. You're out. But now we need to come into community. We need to reconstitute the social determinants of health in our communities. We need to re-network as that social health safety net system, not just for us, but it will benefit us directly, but for the people in that, the care network, the people that have been holding up everything while it's collapsing right now. They are the grandmothers babysitting while somebody's got to work. They are the mothers giving up their children to foster care because they're getting taken out of their homes right now, but they refuse to go be a body worker for it. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we've got to catch these people that are trying their best, but the system itself will never, and never was designed for them. There is a care network. There is a care economy. There is an ecology that's been working in every single community, as desperate as that community is. And we see that in third world countries, or what we've deemed third world countries, who are being a hell of a lot smarter with how they're using AI to pull themselves out of that, which many times the US has put them in. And the Western economies wanting control and money and power and position the way it's been, rather than the way it can be. And so, Owning Her Health's a voice for that. I welcome you. I'm Dr. Lisa, and this is Owning Her Health.